complete set of information on the bore, diameters, shapes, and ammunition for a flare gun. The Orion Olin flare gun that's like this, that you see in PUBG and whatever. If you want to make one of these, you have to start with the barrel diameter and the chamber diameter. I'm going to do this video as quickly as I can because this is the umpteenth take. I've done very good takes, but I want to get to this point fast. You look up the information off the Wikipedia article or the SAMI specs or whatever for a 12-gauge shotgun shell. The rim diameter matches whatever they tell you. The base diameter, which is just above this edge, matches. And then it's 2 inches to this part, and it's the same diameter as whatever the mouth diameter on the SAMI specs are. If you're curious, this is at 79 caliber or 0.79 inches, and this is at 81 caliber down here just before the rim. And you have to look up the rest, but basically a nickel size. If you're doing this for ammo on a belt, so you can have your PUBG flare gun and have an ammo belt or a bandolier, that's all you need to know, right? So for this one, what is its diameter? It matches the outer diameter of a standard CO2 cartridge. Watch. The original flare gun cartridges, and you can still get these, look like a little shotgun shell. And they are. And that's why that diameter's there. It was made so that they could make a 2-inch limiter on this, and then you would have basically in there a constriction that would make it to where it would act as the real barrel for the real bore of what comes out of the shell. And then when they made these things, they made that fit into it and go into it very nicely. So much so that when you do this, it only rattles a little bit. And it's slightly tapered like it's supposed to be. It actually matches all the SAMI specs, and that's what it looks like at the end. And yes, again, a CO2 cartridge, when stuck in there, does that. Yes, that's a big-ass bullet-looking thing. Now, we can also put it backwards in, and if I align it up right, I've done this already. Let's see if this has got any of the dents. I'm going to put the dent, I'm going to put a good spot towards the bottom and see if I can get the dent to go where I predict it will be. It should be low, but it might be high. Pull this back. Watch. Yeah, it actually did it, and yeah, I made another dent. You can puncture a CO2 cartridge and it'll take off out of the flare gun. And that brings up an obvious point, which I'm going to do first in this video. The back of that thing could be filled up with putty to where it matches the shape of a CO2 cartridge. And you could also make it to where it absolutely hits. It's not hitting its center. It's not going to puncture it correctly, but it will puncture it perfectly if you do center it. To where you can make this into a CO2 cartridge launching toy. Now, number one, that's a bad idea. Number two, in the United States especially, you would need to extend this barrel, which isn't very difficult at this point, to being 26 inches long. This would act as a decent pressure chamber, and it would launch the damn thing. You've just been told how to do this. This is $40 off of FITH Ops website. Go look it up. At $30 or $40. Anyway, next. Making a better flare gun that you can't put a 12 gauge in. Again, because you can chamber this, you can find 12 gauge real shotgun shells and stick it in here. Some kid on YouTube can watch him do it. Set one of these off and blew the damn thing up. You can hurt yourself with these. It's a dumb design error. Doesn't have to be there. The original flare gun, there was an original new version of the flare gun that did something really simple. This never opened. It had a little latch on the edge to hold it, so you could easily pull the latch out of the way and fling out the old cartridge. But it literally muzzle loaded the cartridge. It would go in, you'd push it in and get stuck. And until it was in there and clamped in, you couldn't pull the trigger or pull the hammer back. But if you make a nozzle end like that inside of it, the same as every CO2 cartridge thing you've ever bought, and put it down in there, you could use a CO2 cartridge shaped launcher like this. Have all this space in here, because that's actually the entire space there. I mean, it literally, we're down there deep, but you know, it's only, how much further? About a ½ inch deeper. So it would look like a longish version of a CO2 cartridge stuck in there. And the inside diameter, this is steel, but you can make it obviously out of plastic, just like they already do when they launch flares. Olin, Orion, and every other company could switch to that design, and guess what they could do? The newer ones that are a pen launcher, which is designed to duplicate a .22 caliber illegal hidden pen gun. Anyway, what it does is it has almost exactly the same thing. It has threads on the ass end of it. Looks for all the world like the thing you use for pumping up air on your bicycle. That thing could be able to fit into here too. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you can get one of those Hunter signals from Russia, or you know, one of them that's sold from True Flare, and see if it'll fit down in there. And everybody could decide, hey, yeah, we'll just use these as handheld launchers because this is a lot better. And Olin Orion could offer these as glued shut versions, which are made so where you can't put a 12 gauge flare in it anymore. You could just put in those flares. And they could just copy this design. This shape is not patented. And this will hold a 209 primer in it. So you could use the same components you're currently using in these and in these, and have that entire barrel space filled up, and it would never match up with a 12 gauge. You wouldn't have to get an ATF exemption. You wouldn't even have the state of California complaining. New York wouldn't be able to complain because the damn thing cannot fire any fucking ammo at that point. You can't even put a real subcaliber adapter because the subcaliber adapters rely on the pressure being pushed against here. This relies on the pressure coming out of the barrel pushing everything back in. And then when you're done, you could make it to where you just fling it to get the cartridge out, or you could even make it to where it sticks out a little bit, so after you fire it, you just put your finger in there and pull the damn thing out. Problem solved. It can't do 12 gauges. You don't have to make it out of plastic anymore. You could make a metal one, because it's a metal, well, it's a 12 gauge, it's a 12 gauge metal gun. Yeah, but it's a muzzle loader. If you have to shove the bullet in the wrong way to get it to go in there, it's not going to do anything. Yeah, somebody will make ammo that'll launch, but at that point, you are legally open for this. And all the cosplayers could have an authentic, you know, real world version, way cool version. And honestly, muzzle loading an empty cartridge, an empty gun with a cartridge, and then firing it, and then having it have like a tab to pull it back out, would be a lot more mechanically simple. You don't have to. Okay, let me demonstrate this real quick. It's a good suggestion. It should be taken to heart. Put the cartridge in, close it, pull this back. Okay, now we do the other way. This is how many steps are involved. You don't have to open and then close it and put it in. You put it in, you pull back, and you launch. That's fewer steps, it's easier to do, and it forces you to point it straight up because you're not supposed to fire these this way. You're supposed to fire them straight up. If you fire them the other way, it slides out. That would act as another feature that would be safe. These are already drop safe to where you can't even hit the hammer without pulling the trigger. So I just wanted to point all those things out. Okay? It's an interesting idea, but also it may be very valid. Anyway, to get to the point, if you want to keep making old school, the inner diameter of the barrel. The rest of the stuff is actually something you can make out of plastic, PVC, whatever. I don't recommend PVC. But if you want, for cosplay purposes only. But the metal tubing or plastic tubing you're going to use if you're going to make some other damn thing out of it. The dimensions of this is a battery diameter for the bore. If you want to do these cartridges, please don't use 12 gauge cartridge looking things. The outside diameter matches this CO2 cartridge. Yours will vary, but this is a good idea. And would it be a cartridge that would fit into a shotgun shell. And the rest of this is shotgun shell dimensions from Wikipedia. And then the rest of it is you build your PUBG flare gun based on those dimensions. And if you want to do a PUBG flare gun that would be safe to take to a cosplay convention and put a clacker in it where this is literally a drum to hit or whatever, you could make it to where your cartridges look just like this, but the whole bore diameter is the same diameter and is small, not the big one. And you make it to where you muzzle load them. Tell them it's the WAPTEC conversion of it, if you want to. And it would have a bright orange, ring like that at the end. Doesn't matter what the flare gun color is. It can't break open, and you can mold it shut to where it's obvious it cannot open and cannot be a gun. So that they can look at you and say, oh, it doesn't break. You don't even have to have an exposed hammer. You can have a pullback hammer or have a double action. I'll have a video on how to do that. Next, I want to point out a couple of things here for more information. For those of you who are curious about it, that bore diameter, it's $40 to $60 for a rifled 12 gauge 5-inch long choke. It tapers slightly, and then it has rifling to spin up a solid slug. And it is inner diameter of 73 caliber, not the outer diameter of what is screwed in. Every shotgun company makes a different threaded choke diameter. And you can get a threaded choke shotgun for $80 some odd. Yeah, it will. It'll do all the cool stuff. And it might use some standard that's just commonly used. But that's a 5-inch rifled choke. You could use as a barrel in that, molded as plastic. But it's an interesting idea. Anyway, it's 40 or 60 bucks. Someone needs to 3D print these so we can make these as toys. Next, I want to do a couple of corrections. 1, barrel material for making a real shotgun. I gave everybody the Google strings, which I can't confirm anymore because I lost my connection. 0.810 space inner diameter, or ID. You want to use ID. Next, chromoly, and I also said 4130 steel. Now that did originally bring up the right piece of pipe with that inner diameter. An 81 caliber, 0.810 is what you have to type in. You will find a metal company that's making these for roll cages and for aircraft metal. And they apparently changed their page. I should have archived it. But anyway, it showed that, and that's 81 caliber. That's the base of the shell, not the rim, the base, not the neck, the base. That means the whole barrel is nothing but a chamber. It doesn't have any constrictions, and it won't pattern well. But it's 1-inch external diameter. That's more than 2 millimeters thick. CIP standard says it has to be 2 millimeters thick to work as a shotgun. You end up with a shotgun barrel. And it was, it's supposed to be 4140, not 4130 chromoly. And it's called low alloy chromium, molybdenum, manganese chromoly. Ordinance grade steel is not 4130, it's 4140. I'm sure the 4130 would work, but I have to do this as a correction, so it's a correction. It's on the same fucking page, it's the same shit, but you just got to get the right type. And yes, they have right next to it the point, and it's 0.730 or 0.729. That's the bore diameter you have for a proper shotgun bore. So it's actually really 12 gauge instead of 81. 81 caliber, if you don't know, is a 9 gauge actually. But that's the chamber diameter. So if you have a chamber bore, it's a 9 gauge barrel with the 12 gauge chamber thing. Anyway, that's the diameter of 0.73 that you bore back out to 81 caliber. So you have a chamber and then the barrel internal diameter. The majority of the diameter throughout the barrel is what is called the bore, and that is what you base its caliber or its gauge by. Now, the only reason to do that diameter that I would think of is, number one, then you can perfectly mill the cartridge to where it gets stuck almost in there, like it does with the flare gun here, to where it won't come out, number one. Number two, it'll have a really good seal on firing, which means that it really doesn't have as many problems making everything fit perfectly, as long as you get the cartridge in there correctly. Next, that would imply that you have to mill it, get the wrong size, and then sand it to get bigger. Or you can just buy the 81 caliber inner diameter if you get lucky. Or you can buy just junk grade metal and do that too. If it's softened metal, it'll still work. It just will die faster. It won't last decades. It'll last a couple of years. Or maybe last forever if you never fire it. But anyway, I want to point out that you can get a 5-inch long rifled choke to put into it. And yes, it will absolutely thread right into that 81 caliber, right? The companies that make these make them to totally different standards, so I don't know. So I have to find one. Obviously, I'm not spending 40 or 60 bucks on a piece of metal I'm not going to use. I'm not going to do that experiment, but I need to know the outer diameter, so it's an RFC for it. Next, I'm really sorry I got the metal type. It's 4140 proper for gun barrel steel or ordnance grade steel. I didn't have the right words for it, and I couldn't look it up, and then I found it by accident on the page that was selling the rifled choke tubes, because they have to make it out of the same material so it behaves correctly. So that's about it. I hope I got everything in here. I don't know if I did. This went a lot faster. I apologize for making a mistake of literally one digit, and I'm pretty sure they would both work, but that's that. Next thing is, again, it's 80 bucks to buy a real gun that'll take these chokes that you have to dink around with for safety. If you want to do these experiments, do them in such a way that you're doing them to learn about metallurgy and metals, or maybe you just want to build a gun to see if you can make one. Test it by doing it in such a way that it can't hurt anybody, and when you get done with it, it should be dead. You should test these to destruction because they're so cheap, and make a good one based on what you learned. Use the best, throw away the rest. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Be safe. Bye.